Hi, welcome to Business Influencers. I'm your host, Chris Salem. Welcome to Business Influencers. If this is your first time, you found us here at the TALRadio platform. Again, here you can find a wide variety of different shows covering all types of content, whether if it's business or anything around personal matters. You can find it here at the TALRadio, short for Touch of Life Foundation. We have been so grateful to be part of this great platform since 2021 during COVID, when we launched Business Influencers, all designed to help raise your level of influence, not only on an individual, but a business level, and helping you to create more impact and connect with your audience at a different level. It's those that have the ability to influence that make the biggest differences in their industries and business alike. And we encourage you to follow us not only on TALRadio, which you found us here, but also on YouTube, where we have our video part of the show. And then, of course, on other areas like Apple, Spotify, you could also listen to the the audio portion of the show. So again, we encourage you to definitely follow us in all those areas, and feel free to listen in or watch the show, whatever you prefer. We have it covered here, and we hope that, again, you receive a lot of value here at TALRadio. With that being said, we got a great show for you today. I am looking forward to talking about this important topic here. And we're going to be talking about healing generational patterns before they are passed on. And we're going to be here with Shree Rego, who is a speaker and a women's coach with over 10 years of experience helping high-achieving women and working mothers lead themselves first while raising great humans. She supports women in breaking through all self-sabotage cycles, regulating emotional triggers, and rewriting generational patterns, all while maintaining their clarity and their ambitions as well. Now, Shree's work centers on raising confident, resilient humans and preserving connection, respect, and trust into adulthood. And she integrates this into emotional leadership, personal growth, and grounded spirituality into practical, real-world tools for modern motherhood. And without further ado, we welcome Shree Rego to the show. Shree, how you doing today?
I am doing great, Chris. How are you?
Doing great. And we are so excited to talk about this important topic here, because this is something that again, I know from my past experiences, if I hadn't gone through this shift over 26 years ago, I definitely would have repeated that generational curse of dysfunction that had been plaguing my surname, my father's side of the family for multiple generations. And I was able to break that pattern with my family, and thank God. And I can't wait to hear you share your insights on this. And before we talk about some of the things that women can be doing to heal generational patterns before they are passed on, maybe if you could share like a backstory, what led you up into what you do today, helping these women in this particular area, and anything you'd like to share there.
Okay. Wow. That could be a loaded question. I'll try to simplify it, and congratulations to you for breaking the pattern, because
thank you.
Not many people are really aware that it's there, right?
Yes.
And that it's all with us. I mean, most parents focus on correcting their children, but the work really starts with us and correcting ourselves.
Yes.
It's the inner work. And yeah, what brought me there? Well, when I was divorced, I had two very little babies, a 1 and a 2.5-year-old. And I really became aware of the patterns when I was a yeller. I was a stressed, single, working mother. And I thought, I just don't want to be my mom and dad. And with that said, wonderful parents, they did an amazing job, really great people. And they had no idea that they were passing on their stress and their patterns and their scarcity mindsets and all these things. And so I made it my mission to really study and understand what I was doing and how I could change that. And I have amazing humans. I mean, they're 23 and 25-year-olds, and they love spending time with me, and they're resilient. And I credit that to the inner work that I knew I had to do.
Wow, I love that. And I always say that, some of the best teachers like yourself, we teach from experience, right? We've been through this personally and so on. So what, maybe we could start with, with women as mothers and also women leaders that, especially the ones that listen to this show. What would be some of the triggers that women now should be aware of that could now be kind of giving them now awareness and indication that some of the things that they may be doing could be working against them, and the example they're setting for their children, or let alone their spouse and even people that work for them?
Yeah, and that's a good point that you just said too. This not only helps you raise great children, great humans, but the work helps you be a better partner, a better friend, a better coworker, because you're learning the things that we're going to talk about, like the patterns and the things that trigger you, how you react instead of respond. So the big thing starts with awareness. What is triggering you when your child does something, right? Or what patterns are you seeing in yourself that you didn't like that your parents did? So my dad was kind of verbally abusive. I say that lightly. He was a major yeller. And the one thing I knew for sure, that I didn't even have to do the work. I just knew I was never going to be verbally abusive. But the yelling, I'm so guilty.
I can remember.
I had to break that, because I was reacting. I was stressed, I was financially stressed. I was stressed with work. And so just pay attention, or ask yourself, what did my parents do, whether they were great parents or not, that drove me crazy or that affected me, that I'm probably just by default doing again as a parent myself, right? So just awareness is the key. Just like pay attention. Is there a scarcity mindset? Are you saying things like, we can't afford that right now, you can't have that? That's putting in a scarcity mindset to your child. The yelling, emotional shutdown. Did your parents not talk when they were mad at you? Did they give you the silent treatment? Are you doing the same thing? Because that right there, you've got to consciously interrupt. So that's the first step.
Okay, great. And really great. And this is really important, especially for the women leaders listening. Awareness starts with recognizing these triggers, these things that a lot of times we may take for granted. But what Shree had just shared, now that you can be mindful of that, because that you got to recognize what those are before. Now, what would you recommend, Shree? Like if now women are recognizing, wow, now I can start to see where some of these patterns that I'm exhibiting, whether it's my behavior, my attitude, my emotions, and how you said how your dad how he reacted by yelling. It was the same thing on my side, same thing. And what I did for the first 31 years of my life, that's how I reacted by yelling. That's all I knew. We only know what we grew up with. Like what would be some of the first steps, other than now recognizing those triggers, that women can start taking now to start making that better, reversing that dysfunction?
Well, I believe in 5 steps, and I learned the hard way through learning myself, right? And the first one is awareness. The second one is intention. And I believe in the power of intention setting. I say this all the time. It's very different than goal setting. And as important as goal setting is, intention is more about a feeling and a legacy and integrity. And the real question is, how do you want your relationship to be when your child is 25 years old? And, do you want them, and do you want a child, a person that's compassionate, resilient, respectful, emotionally aware? And these are all the things that we have to ingrain. And, I remember thinking I didn't have a great relationship as a teenager with my parents. I didn't feel there was trust there. I didn't feel that I could go to them if I messed up. And I said, I am going to be that mother that the kids want to be at my house. They're going to all hang out at my house. My teenagers can come to me if they did something wrong. They're going to feel safe. So set the intention. What do you want that relationship to be like? And who do you want your child to be as a human? So that is, the second step, which is so important. And intention setting, it just, if anything, it sets the groundwork, right? So you kind of know what you need to kind of mold at that point. And then that leads to the third really important step, is modeling, because our children learn far more for what they see than what we tell them. Telling them you need to do this is one thing if it's like for their safety. But, if you want your child to have a good work ethic, they have to see you follow through. And this is where the helicopter mom comes in. When they're doing the work for their child, when they're trying to solve the problems for them. And, if you want to have a compassionate human being, they have to see how you treat others. You want someone to...
Absolutely.
An emotional regulation is going to raise an emotionally intelligent human being, teaching them how to solve problems, how to interact with others. So you have to model that behavior.
I love that. And if you could go dive a little deeper, because I think sometimes like women might, even men, I've seen this with men a lot of times too. We confuse that when we go out of our way to help somebody by pleasing and enabling them is the same thing as leading by example. No, because one leads with empathy by being the example and being resourceful. One leads with sympathy, and it's different. And if we please and enable our children, they grow up being now codependent and they don't take action. They just expect mom's going to come in and pick up my mess and clean everything up for me, and I don't have to be accountable.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately that is it's very prevalent in the generations now, because especially with parents my age and a little bit younger, we want to do so much more than what we feel we received from our parents, but it's almost to the extreme. And, solving their problem does not teach them emotionally how to handle failure. And failure is really important. And one of the things my son said to me just recently when I asked him a question when I was writing this course that is based on this program, and he said, you let us make mistakes without giving us a hard time. Like we learned, and then we could learn from it. And I think too many parents are trying to solve the problems or, filling out that job application. If you want, that your child needs to learn how to do that stuff themselves.
Exactly. But what I liked what you said is that sometimes maybe, people may not always like to be like, hey, you're a great example and you're not doing for me. But sometimes when they learn to do it for themselves from what they observe, they have more respect for you. And now you're teaching them to have respect for themselves and to, now hopefully not repeat patterns of codependency that they're going to, pass that off onto their children.
Yeah. So important. I mean, it's just, I see so much of it. And that's why I mentioned the helicopter mom. And, in the work world, when I was in corporate for a long time, gosh, I would just see people that, in their 20s and 30s that didn't know how to have any accountability for what they were doing. And I think, that goes into a lot of the emotional awareness too, I don't know if there was a question you had, because we got disconnected. I got disconnected.
So the question would be, again, just that fine line between being the example, being resourceful from empathy, and then pleasing and enabling where we do for them.
Yeah. And you have to ask yourself when you're modeling, who do I need to become in order to raise a child to be this way, right? Don't tell them, who do you need to become? Do you need to be accountable? Do you need to admit when you're wrong? And that's another step. But which brings us into emotional awareness, right? So the yelling, the criticism, were you raised with that? And like, what is actually happening? And you have to ask yourself, how can I teach my child to be able to name that emotion? So if your child is like really angry or just really upset, ask them like, what is going on? So they can say, I'm really mad right now, or I'm really sad. And that's teaching them how to communicate their feelings. It's also teaching them how to problem solve and become a more emotionally intelligent. But too often we want to just fix it, or we want to just, they're screaming, they're having a temper tantrum, just let it go. But no, you want to teach them to name that emotion.
Yeah. So important. And And it's so, when you said this about, like, a mother with her children, it's I mean, I'm not going to say it's exactly this, but in a way it's kind of the same. Your people that work for you or people that work with you are also going to model your behavior, your attitude. So they're going to adapt in more positive ways if now you're enabling them and so on.
Yeah, this goes with leadership, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a supervisor that's yelling because you're angry or something is happening that's bad for, the department, and you're like screaming, it's the exact same thing. Like your team is going to say, "Oh my gosh, this person is stressed out," and you're going to cause them to be stressed or them to not be able to own up to a mistake they may have made, which it's not being a very good leader.
Oh yeah, so true. Yeah. So true. And I hope everyone is really taking notes here, because this is, a lot of times we take these things for granted, what Shree is sharing. And now, like what she talked about, being aware of those triggers, being aware of some of the things that you're doing that you thought were not really a big deal, but they are. That could be having now, like, they accumulate and have an impact not only on you, but the people that you influence around you. And this is so important. What are some of the other areas, if you haven't already shared, Shree, that to elaborate on some of the steps that you talked about, that I think would be really, really helpful to the audience, particularly the women leaders here?
Well, and I think the final step that I believe in is the conscious correction. So once you become aware, once you're learning that you need to model that behavior, set the intention, it's up to us, the parent, to break the cycle. So, and first of all, we're never going to be a perfect parent. There is no such thing.
No such thing.
But you want to be like, I would yell and I would then, or have an argument with my children, and I would be able to say, one thing I never got from my parents was, I'm sorry. I always wanted, after a big argument, them to admit their part in it, and it never was going to happen. So I would say to my son or my daughter, I did not handle that well. I'm really sorry. I'm going to work on doing better next time. And that's teaching them, accountability, humility. Really hard to say you're sorry if you don't get good at it. And emotional repair. I'm repairing that relationship with them to build more trust, so that when they're, becoming a teenager and when they're an adult, there's a better level of trust. I mean, so many parents, your teenagers just shut down because you're repeating a pattern you may not be aware of, and they're not getting that human side of you. They're just seeing like a parent can do no wrong or thinks they can do no wrong. You're showing them that I'm human, and in your future relationships, you need to be able to hold yourself accountable and, be vulnerable at times. So that break the cycle, catch yourself, or if you've already repeated the pattern and you've then become aware of it, let your child know, that you're working on it. Teaches them to be able to work on things themselves personally.
I like what you said there, because again, not being afraid to, because like we said, there is no parent ever going to be perfect. It's always about progress, and we're human. But at the same token, we know that we're not continuing to repeat those same patterns, mistakes, because now what you shared with us, now we have that more top of mind to recognize what we have to do differently.
And the reality is, our previous generations most likely didn't have the skill set or the knowledge. No. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have all these, they didn't believe in therapy, most of the generations. No.
You sucked it up, you stuffed it, right? That's how our generation.
Yeah. And they weren't aware that they were it even mattered, right? It's just, this is how it is. So we have the opportunity now to heal what our previous generations weren't able to. Yeah. And we can make that, it stops, and we make that choice. And it's just so important, because you're just think of always go back to, it's not about being a robot and thinking that you have to raise your child a certain way. It's about being a good human yourself in order to raise that resilient, confident, emotionally available young adult.
Yeah. Can you share from when you went through this and, made this transformation like I did so many years ago? One of the lessons I had to learn was to let go of the control I can't control. And that was always other people and situations. The only thing I could that I had to learn to control was me. That I could control my communication, behavior, attitude, emotions, how I respond versus react. Everything's happening for you, not to you, and then my action. As long as I did that, I didn't have to be responsible for the same things in other people in situations. Right. And that changed my whole EQ, that elevated my EQ to a whole new level.
So true. And I see, and like you said, this doesn't just apply to your children. It applies to your the person that you're in a relationship with or who you're working with. When you're trying to change someone, first of all, that person has to want to change. And you have to respect that your child is an individual and they're going to have their quirks. So you can only, again, model what, the integrity or the emotional awareness that you want in someone. You have to accept that they're not going to be. They may not want to go to college if you want them to go to college. They may want to do something completely different. I mean, you can influence what you think is best. You can give your opinion. It's the same thing in your relationship. You can't change your partner. You have to accept that, what am I going to learn from this? What can I do? What can I bring to this? If you're becoming the best version of yourself, that's the best thing you can do. Always, right? And the other thing I'd like to add is don't blame the previous generation, because that's not going to get you anywhere. Like once I forgave my dad and mom and really understood that they were working with the limited tools that they were raised with and they had their own story. When you're a kid, you don't know your parents' story. You don't know what they went through really. And so you're not understanding why they're doing something that they're doing. And when you understand that they're human, when I understood my parents were human and forgave them, it just opened up a whole new world. And I realized it's okay. Like, as long as I don't repeat it, it's okay.
Yeah, so true. And like you said, don't blame the progress. They only knew what they knew. And it's so true, because we are a product of how we grow up. So we can't point the finger, because that just keeps us stuck in the control we can't control. I love what you just said there. And I just wanted to just reinforce why that was so important, what you said to our audience. Is there anything that you have not shared so far as, in this, around this topic that you feel is going to be really critical and important, especially for the women leaders and moms to hear here?
There are so many sub steps to the 5 that I mentioned, that I help when I do work one-on-one with women, and especially working moms. But either way, whether your career is like a central focus, half and half with raising your children, and ways to reduce your stress, because you can't really run a household and go to work if you're super stressed, you're not understanding. I like journaling. I agree with meditation and breath work and all those things that I dove really deep as a single mom, because I knew if I didn't put that oxygen mask on first, I was not going to be able to do a good job. And so I think just really important is, if you get anything from this, just really ask yourself that question. Who do I want my children to be? What kind of character? What is triggering me? Like, if my child says something, if it's about money, and am I triggered? Well, then there's definitely a money story that you're carrying from your past. If you're reacting instead of taking a breath and responding, and you're yelling, this is all, don't minimize that it's really coming from somewhere and that you can correct it. And I think the biggest thing is, that we have to model it, and that we have to just course correct. Oh, and the other thing too is, don't be hard on yourself and don't feel guilty, because at the end of the day, we're all doing the best we can. And the guilty part of it is not going to help you. And as long as you're, waking up each day and saying, I'm doing the best I can, and I love my children, or I love my partner, and I'm a great coworker, then you're going to move forward.
Like you said, you're going to have some moments here, but as long as that we recognize it and we're able to kind of like, okay, I slipped, I know where I did, get back on the horse and move forward. And knowing when to be accountable, when to say, hey, when to apologize. that type of thing. I love it. I love what you shared there. As we're near the end of the show, and before, I would love the audience to connect with you, especially the women leaders. But before we do so, I want to thank you personally for taking time with us here today to share this insight, not only for myself, but the rest of the team here at TALRadio and our Touch Life Foundation, which is a philanthropic organization. What is the best way that they can get in contact with you? What are you up to, and anything that you'd like to provide them here?
Great. Yeah, they can either get in contact with me on my website, which is shreerego.com, or on any of my social media. It's just my name, Shree Rego. I do workshops from time to time. I offer free master classes from time to time, and they can find all that out on the website. There's 4 generational patterns that mothers typically do, and fathers really. And I have a free quiz that gives you access to that. And then if you want to dive deeper, you get a free 30-minute dive deep call with me to see if you want to explore it. I have a course coming out on this material, but I'd love to work directly with women to help them really dive deep, because again, this is self-development, and always working on growing ourselves no matter what area of your life, it's going to help you.
Wow. Thank you so much. And we will make sure, everybody, that Shree's contact information, everything that she shared, will be in the show notes. That will be available not only on TALRadio, but also on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple as well. So you'll be able to get that information. And any reason you reach out to us, we'll make sure to connect you with her directly. And we encourage everyone to make that connection. Such valuable information. Shree, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We'll definitely have you on for another episode in the future where we can expand further on this very important topic.
Thank you, Chris. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners, for joining us each and every week here at Business Influencers. Again, we are committed to bringing in subject matter experts like Shree in to share their words of wisdom and insights to help elevate you and the power of influence to the next level. Again, if you'd like to see content that we have not covered on a future show, feel free to reach out to our team here at Christophersalem.com, and we'll make sure that we'll look into that for future show with the right subject matter expert to share that wisdom with you. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you here next week at the same date and time. Till then, have a great day and take care.